They told me early on that hustle looked like a sprint: run faster, louder, make yourself seen before anyone else took the space you deserved. I learned to run that way for a while, chasing deadlines, applause, validation in the echoes of other people's expectations, until my lungs burned and the finish line I had been promised dissolved into fog. The lady hustle is smaller and stranger and kinder than that sprint. It is the steady, stubborn work of waking up to who you are and honoring that person every single day. I did not find it overnight. It arrived in fragments: a quiet refusal to apologize for setting a boundary, a late night spent sketching plans on a napkin, the first time I said no to an opportunity that would have taken my dignity in exchange for a title. Each fragment felt insignificant until I stacked them, one honest choice on top of another, and the architecture of my life shifted. There is a daily courage in choosing your own rhythm when the world drums a different beat. An audacious, gentle rebellion that looks like tending to your strengths and your wounds with equal care. I learned that inner strength is not a fortress of stone built to keep feelings out. It is a warm hearth that allows you to sit with fear, grief, and doubt without letting them run the household. When a setback arrives, and it will, because life is generous with them, you do not have to pretend it never happened or that you are unmarred. You gather the pieces, small and jagged, and you make a mosaic. The cracks do not diminish your worth. They become the seams that catch the light. Self-belief in this hustle is not a weatherproof armor against failure, but a steady whisper: I will try again, I will learn, I will show up. It sounds simple, maybe even obvious, and yet it is radical in a world that equates value with perfection and speed. I practiced that whisper quietly, in the small mornings when the world was still deciding my fate for me. Pouring coffee, opening a notebook, saying the names of my goals out loud until they stopped sounding like fantasy and began to feel like obligations of love toward my future self. Faith, for me, was not always a spiritual declaration. Sometimes it was a pragmatic commitment to the long view. When the doors slammed, faith was the map I drew with a trembling hand: the routes I could take, resources I could call, the people I could ask for help. I learned to hold two truths at once: that not all things are within my control, and that some things are mine to change. The dignity of the lady hustle is seen in quiet victories: choosing rest without guilt, refusing to shrink so others can shine, insisting on fair pay and honest words, showing up to your plate even when you are tired. Dignity is refusing to barter your integrity for a shortcut. It is treating yourself as someone worth a calm voice and kind treatment. There were days I mistook hustle for punishment, believing that relentless striving would finally prove me worthy. Those days taught me a different metric. Worth is not something you earn through exhaustion. It is the steady recognition that you have been given talents, scars, and time, and you can steward them with care. The lady hustle is practice, sometimes messy, often imperfect, but always intentional. It asks you to be patient with progress because growth rarely arrives on schedule. A seed spends most of its life unseen under the soil. You water it, you trust the unseen work, and when it finally breaks through, the bloom does not announce itself with shame or apology. That patience is fierce. It looks like continuing when applause is absent, showing up when success is delayed, learning when rejection stings. In the quiet of those in-between times, you build a resilience that does not blunt your sensitivity but strengthens it. You become someone who feels deeply and recovers deliberately. I want you to imagine your life as a long road that curves and forks, and sometimes disappears into trees. You can cling to the idea that the road must look a certain way, a straight line to an approved destination, or you can become an excellent cartographer of your own journey. Map the weather, mark the safe places to rest, note who travels well with you and who drains your fuel. Learn the language of your own needs and translate them into action. That translation might mean renegotiating relationships, asking for mentorship, leaving a job that dims you, or returning to an old dream you once shelved. Each act of translation is an act of honesty and bravery. Society will try to tell you which wars are worth fighting, which sacrifices are noble, and which ambitions are unbecoming of your role. Push back, gently but firmly. You are allowed to want success and also to want balance, to nurture children and also to build a company, to grieve and to celebrate on the same day. Your goals do not cancel your tenderness. they contextualize it. The lady hustle demands you choose your priorities with clarity and then protect them with kindness. Practical courage anchors this work: patience with the timeline, faith when the evidence is thin, dignity in negotiations, and the humility to ask for help. Surround yourself with women who root for you, not performative cheerleaders, but those who will tell you the truth when you are flattering yourself and who will hold you up when you falter. Celebrate small milestones: the email you sent despite fear, the first draft finished, the conversation that reclaimed your voice. Those small celebrations are fuel. They teach your nervous system that risk can be rewarding. Let your imagination be your compass and your history be your teacher. Look back not to drown in old mistakes, but to identify patterns and salvage wisdom. Your past failures are not verdicts. They are raw materials. Use them. Build differently this time. The lady hustle recognizes that rest is revolutionary. Rest is not passive, it is a strategic regrouping. When you rest, you recalibrate your priorities, restore your energy, and return with sharper focus. Practice rest like you practice the craft of your life. Intentionally, regularly, without apology. And when the world compares your progress to someone else's highlight reel, remember that everyone has unseen mornings. Comparison steals joy and narrows possibility. Measure yourself against the version of you who existed a year ago. Are you kinder, braver, clear in your intention? That measure will keep you honest and hopeful. Finally, know that rising after setbacks is not a single triumphant moment on a scripted stage. It is a series of small risings, answering the phone that contains bad news, writing one more paragraph after 14 rejections, returning to the training mat after an injury, re-entering conversation after silence. Each return stitches a new seam in your courage garment. Over time, the cumulative effect of these returns creates a presence that is magnetic, not because it is unbreakable, but because it is continually repaired with purpose. The lady hustle invites you to live with actionable faith, make plans, but stay open, set goals, but allow detours, work hard, but protect your heart. Hold your dignity like a lantern, and let it light the path when the fog falls. Be patient with who you are becoming. Be relentless in who you know you can be. This hustle is not about proving anything to those who have doubted you. It is about answering the call that lives quietly inside your chest. The one that asks you to steward your gifts, to meet your moments with courage, to love yourself enough to keep trying. Rise again, not because failure is intolerable, but because you have a story that matters and a voice the world needs. Stand, steady and luminous, and keep going. There are seasons when the world seems to move on without you, as if life is a river and you are clinging to a branch, while everyone else drifts past in boats that shimmer with accomplishment. In those seasons, doubt becomes a constant companion, whispering clever reasons to stop. You're too late. It's too hard. You should have started earlier. But the truth I learned is that timing is not a single clock. It is a chorus of clocks, some wound tightly, some barely ticking. And your time is the one you steward. Resilience in the lady hustle is not a dramatic leap over obstacles. It is the quiet, steady presence that returns to the work after the lull, that waters the idea while the soil is still cold, that keeps writing when the words feel thin. It is the unglamorous repetition of showing up, which over months and years rearranges possibility. I discovered that the inner voice that doubts is often a tired sentinel trying to protect you from fresh hurt. Listen to it with curiosity, not capitulation. Ask it what it fears, then answer with compassion and a plan: small, manageable steps that allow courage to grow without demanding heroism overnight. Delays bruise our confidence in a way applause never does. A postponed promotion, a stalled manuscript, a healing that takes longer than anyone said it would. All of these can erode trust in your own timing. Yet delay also teaches a kind of apprenticeship in patience. It teaches you to fold your hopes gently and carry them like fragile cloth, tending edges rather than tossing them. During delays, you learn resourcefulness, how to repurpose your energy, how to revise goals so they fit the person you are becoming, not the version you once imagined. This is not settling, it is strategic adaptation. You are not abandoning ambition. You are calibrating it to a wiser trajectory. In the hush of waiting, you can collect necessary tools, skills you did not have, relationships you did not know you needed, deeper clarity about what truly matters. Sometimes the detour contains the very training you needed for the destination. Silent struggles can feel like shameful secrets in a culture that prizes visible wins. But silence is not evidence of weakness. It is often the crucible where transformation simmers. There were nights I thought I was failing because I could not articulate my inner weather to those around me. Then I realized that some healing must be private to take root. You may be repairing relationships, reworking belief systems, or tending to a body that remembers old injuries. These labors are real work. Even when they leave no public trace, allow yourself the dignity of private mending. Give your healing rituals space, a notebook you return to without expectation, a slow walk that names feelings instead of fixing them, conversations with a trusted friend who knows how to listen without delivering answers. In this containment, small shifts accumulate into something sturdy. Learning to rest without guilt is one of the most revolutionary practices I encountered. We are taught that rest is a reward, not a necessity. But the Lady Hustle knows rest is a strategic resource. Rest is not surrender, it is maintenance of the self that will keep hustling. Rest is oiling the joints and refilling the wells. Practice rest as practice, schedule it like a meeting with someone important. Because you are important. And protect it with the same resolve you would use to protect a deadline. Rest may look like a slow morning with no screens, a weekend that honors quiet, or a firm boundary that declines a request that would cost your center. When you rest without shame, you teach your nervous system that replenishment is permissible and productive. Over time, you will notice your decisions sharpen and your stamina lengthen. Choosing yourself despite fear is not a one-time declaration, it is a series of daily renewals. Fear will present an impressive argument against risk, cataloging worst-case scenarios, rehearsing old rejections, pointing to every possible consequence. The Lady Hustle responds to fear by naming it and then translating it into action that feels manageable: a single email, a brief conversation that clarifies a boundary, a small financial plan that creates breathing room. Courage is pragmatic. It does not annihilate fear, it works with it. When you choose yourself, you prioritize your needs and your aspirations in ways that respect both your context and your limits. This may mean choosing to stay, choosing to leave, or choosing to redefine success entirely. Each choice is a reorientation toward your own axis. For those who feel unseen and unheard, know that visibility is not the only metric of impact. Root systems of plants are invisible to most passers-by, yet they determine the strength of the tree above. Your labor, emotional, creative, domestic, professional, creates a foundation that supports you and others, whether or not it is filmed or liked. Keep tending those roots. Make a record of your small wins, the hours you invested, the conversations you initiated, the boundaries you named. Over time, this ledger becomes proof not for the world, but for you. Evidence that you did not stall, you were building. Growth is often uneven. It is not a ladder with evenly spaced rungs, but a landscape of hills and plateaus. Some days you bound uphill with surprising ease. Other days you find yourself trudging through mud that slows your pace. Both conditions are part of the same movement. When progress is invisible, trust the micro shifts, your patience increasing, your reaction softening, your ability to sit with discomfort lengthening. These are the slow shifts that become irreversible. Celebrate them privately if you must. They matter more than the noise of sudden spectacle. Lean into mentors and peers who reflect your endurance back to you, who can remind you of the trajectory when your sight is foggy. Healing is not linear. It comes in spirals. One step forward, a quiet night of doubt, another step forward. The Lady Hustle honors that rhythm. Healing demands imagination as much as time. Imagine your future self with compassion. What habits does she hold? What boundaries has she learned to maintain? Let that imagined person inform your current choices. This is not fancifulness, it is a practical rehearsal for who you are becoming. Use visualization as a tool to detect what really matters versus the checklist of externals you were taught to desire. Inner transformation is often quieter than you expect. It begins with small re-routings, a different response to criticism, a pause before agreeing to work that drains you, a decision to invest in learning rather than immediate gain. Over months, these reroutes rewrite the contour of your life. Your priorities will refine, your tolerance for disrespect will narrow, your appetite for performative business will diminish. This trimming is not loss, it is liberation. You are pruning to allow the parts that matter to flourish. The work of the lady hustle insists on accountability that is gentle and real. Hold yourself to standards that honor your capacities rather than punish your limitations. Check in regularly what is working, what is draining you, which relationships uplift, and which require too much repair. Use these audits not to shame, but to redirect. Change what you can, accept what you cannot, and innovate within those bounds. Lastly, remember that community is a form of resilience. You need not carry the whole narrative alone. Reach for solidarity, not because you are weak, but because interdependence is practical intelligence. Share your rough drafts, your fears, your half-baked plans. Let women who have traveled similar paths offer their maps, and offer yours in return. In the exchange, you will discover new routes and new courage. This ongoing journey does not resolve neatly. It deepens. It surprises. It asks you to hold contradictions, ambition and tenderness, rest and urgency, confidence and questioning at once. Keep moving forward with patience that is fierce and gentle, with faith that is practical and humble, and with a dignity that refuses to be bartered away for the sake of temporary comfort. You arrive at the crest of the hill, not because you charged recklessly toward it, but because you learned how to walk through fog with a steady foot and a soft stubbornness in your chest. Rising from setbacks is not a single leap into light. It is the cumulative geometry of many small recoveries, each one pivoting your life a degree closer to the true north of your purpose. There comes a moment, sometimes sudden, sometimes barely perceptible, when the labor of past years reveals itself not as exhausted sacrifice, but as a foundation. The scared places of your story are not stains, they are maps, stitched with lessons and marked with coordinates that point to how you can best serve your work and your community. Confidence arrives then like sunlight filtered through stained glass. It is warm and multicolored, revealing facets of your strength you had not noticed in the uniform glare of performance culture. This self-confidence is not boastful, it is quiet and precise. It begins with a simple reckoning. You catalog what you have learned, what you can do, and what you will no longer accept. From that ledger grows an inner authority that refuses to be negotiated away. Turning struggles into purpose is alchemy, transforming pain into fuel for meaningful work. The things that wounded you become the very things that give you empathy, strategy, and insight. A job you lost teaches you how to build a business that honors people's time. A relationship that fractured shows you how to shape healthier commitments. The nights you sat awake with anxiety become the source of a gentle program you design for others who cannot sleep. Purpose is often discovered in the margin where you stitched your life back together. It is less about grand destiny than about the everyday decisions to channel your experience into service. When you use your history as a resource rather than a liability, your work acquires a gravity that calls others forward. People are drawn to leaders who have been tested and who still show up with humility and competence. Stepping into impact means widening your definition of success. Impact is not only the applause on stage or the follower count, it is the neighbor whose life is steadier because you set a boundary. The intern who learned to negotiate salary because you mentored her. The rhythm of your household where children watch you value rest and witness dignity in action. Collective impact compounds individual integrity. As you claim authority over your choices, you create space for other women to claim theirs. Influence is contagious when exercised with responsibility. It becomes a ripple that shapes policies, cultures, and expectations. Use your voice to advocate for systems that honor care, flexible work, equitable pay, mental health support. Lead not by domination, but by invitation. Invite conversation, invite correction, invite participation from those whose perspectives differ from your own. There is a kind of celebratory hush when you realize your resilience has become infrastructure for others. The confidence you cultivated quietly becomes a beacon, not a blinding spotlight. People begin to ask how you steadied yourself. Your answers matter because they are practical and imperfect. Share them. Teach the young woman in the meeting how to frame her ideas without apologizing. Teach the mother at the bus stop how to ask for help. Offer your skills to someone who is walking a path similar to the one you traveled. Your legacy is built in these transmissions, the transfer of hard-won knowledge in real time, not as preachy doctrine, but as companionship on the road. Embracing your worth is an act of gentle insistence. It may look like negotiating a contract with clarity about what you will and will not do, or it may look like choosing a partner who reflects your dignity back to you. Either way, it is an uncompromising respect for the limits that preserve your creative life. Worth is not a monolith. It is practiced daily in the little yeses and no's that accumulate into a life that feels right. When you begin to live from that place, your labor stops feeling like proof and begins to feel like offering. The difference is profound. Proof is for the doubters. Offering is for the work itself. Strength, in this season, is integrated with tenderness. You are not steely, you are steady. Strength without tenderness is brittle. Tenderness without strength is unfocused. When you carry both, you become a leader who listens as well as decides, who disciplines as well as nurtures. Practice making decisions that honor both competence and care. Say hard things with a voice calibrated to preserve relationship where possible and to defend integrity where necessary. Your model of leadership will be persuasive precisely because it is humane. The finish line of any project is less important than the horizon it reveals. Even as you celebrate wins, look for ways to widen the circle. How can your success benefit those who follow? Consider apprenticeship as legacy. Invite someone to the table, give them a real seat, and let them try on responsibility. Consider policy and structures. If you have influence, use it to flatten unnecessary ladders, to fund ideas that were once dismissed, to create systems that protect dignity rather than exploit it. There is an ethics in success. The more you rise, the more you are asked to steward resources equitably. Courage is not a one-time surge. It is a practiced muscle. Train it with incremental acts. Choose a conversation you have been avoiding. Apply for the position that scares you. Publish the piece you think will be judged. Take a sabbatical if your soul needs calibration. Do the small things that accumulate into a pattern of bravery. Over time, your default will subtly shift from retreat to engagement. Not every attempt will land as you wish. Failure is still part of the curriculum, but the aggregate effect of repeated courage is a life that leans forward into possibility rather than recoiling from it. Celebrate the women who press on in quiet places, the caregivers, the students, the founders who work in basements and community centers, the older women mentoring without fanfare. Honor their contributions publicly and privately. The world shifts when many small acts of courage accumulate across neighborhoods, workplaces, and kitchens. Collective dignity grows when each person insists on being treated as fully human with needs, ambitions, faults, and gifts. As you move into broader impact, maintain an inner practice that keeps you anchored: a morning ritual of clarity, a weekly audit of priorities, a close circle you consult honestly, a weekly replenishment that is non-negotiable. These practices are the bedrock of sustainable influence. Influence without discipline becomes vanity. Discipline without replenishment becomes cruelty. Balance them. The lady hustle is not about perfection. It is about integrity in motion. Remember the language you use to tell your story. Tell it in ways that are generative. When you recount setbacks, highlight what you learned and how you changed course. When you share wins, say whose shoulders you stood on. Storytelling is a moral act. It shapes who we believe we can become. Be honest without being self-limiting. Use your narrative to invite others into possibility, not to keep them out. Finally, let gratitude be part of your architecture. Gratitude is not a denial of pain. It is an orientation that allows joy to coexist with hardship. Notice the people who held you, the small mercies that arrived, the opportunities that opened. Gratitude softens ambition without dulling it. It keeps your ascent anchored to a sense of belonging rather than entitlement. This is the climax, not as an ending, but as an opening. You rise, and in rising you take a handful of others with you. Your dignity becomes contagious, your voice becomes a rallying point, and your life, stitch by stitch, becomes a template for what is possible when women choose themselves with courage, steadiness, and love. The work is glorious because it is communal. The impact is durable because it is built on integrity. Keep tending the fire that warms you and lights the path for others. The road ahead is long and generous, and your footsteps matter.